having social standing and a respectable job
Is there a problem?
doesn't mean a woman is trustworthy. A distinguished LA cop can't solve one crime.
She was abusing her power and authority.
The founder of modern adoption only saves some babies.
Georgia Tann is one of the most despicable excuses for a human being that ever walked on the earth.
And a young scientist uses her laboratory for no good.
She felt entitled to take somebody's life.
These deadly women are smart, cunning, and think they're above the law. Los Angeles, 2009. A murder cold case reopens thanks to new DNA technology.
There are tools now in the forensic arsenal that were not available 25 years ago.
For 23 years, Sherry Rasmussen's killer has roamed free, but justice is moving in. For LAPD detective Stephanie Lazarus, it's a case close to her heart.
This was a love, essentially, that never died.
Too close. "30 years earlier, Detective Lazarus is a UCLA freshman. Smart and athletic, the 18-year-old is ready to take on the world.
She was a woman who was pretty in that kind of kid sister way.
In her residential hall, Stephanie finds another fitness fanatic, John Rutten.
I can never say no to another drink.
Tall, charming, and ready for fun.
They both like to run, they both work out, they're fitness nuts, they lift weights.
Where's that drink, Congressman?
I'll make it up.
It's not long before the pair hooks up, but in the modern way, as friends with benefits.
They date, but they're not exclusive. It's not like they're lovers. Well, at least from his point of view.
Through their college years, the arrangement works just fine. It even continues after they graduate.
After graduating from UCLA, Stephanie surprises all her friends and her family members by applying for the police academy.
And she moves straight up the ranks. She's a great officer. People like her. Tenacious. Smart.
While Stephanie walks the beat in Hollywood, John gets a white-collar job as an electrical engineer. They are still friends when John meets the woman of his dreams.
6 foot tall, beautiful woman. Striking in appearance and striking professionally.
Hi, I'm John.
Hi, John. I'm Sherry.
27-year-old nurse, Sherry Rasmussen.
They fell almost instantly in love. It was easy. They didn't have to think about it. It just flowed.
Do you want to grab a seat and I can get you a drink?
Within a year, the couple is engaged. But an old flame refuses to go out.
Stephanie Lazarus kept a journal, and it was apparent from her writings that she was incredibly fond of John Rutten.
The cool cop has shared her man before, but this time she has serious competition.
Stephanie Lazarus just simply became unglued. When she found out that John Rutten was engaged to another woman,
Hello, John?
she called him up.
Can you please come over? I need to talk to you.
He drives over, and he finds this woman who's incredibly distraught.
Please don't marry her.
Stephanie could be very disciplined in her life, following the rules and regulations.
I love Sherry.
But she could not control her emotions when it came to Sherry and John being together.
Stephanie reveals her true feelings.
I love you. I love you so much.
This caught John by surprise. Emotionally, he wasn't ready for the things that Stephanie was telling him.
Finally, he says he has to leave, and she makes one last plea, and that is, could we just please have sex?
Please.
And he consents.
For John, it's a farewell gift for an old friend. For Stephanie, it's a down payment on her emotional mortgage.
Hey! You stole my boyfriend!
In a very telling
sorry, what do
display
you mean?
of jealousy and possession, Stephanie went to Sherry's office at the hospital.
He slept with me 2 nights ago? What?
Stephanie shows her rival she still has the power over John.
She was wearing short shorts and a crop top in what I think was an effort to show how sexy and cute she was.
This was shocking to Sherry Rasmussen. She was frightened. She was frightened of Stephanie.
Sherry forgives John, his final dalliance, and the couple marries in November 1985. But if they think a wedding ring will end Stephanie's obsession, they're wrong.
Their life was moving forward, but that left Lazarus on the outside looking in.
November 1985. Los Angeles couple Sherry Rasmussen and John Rutten are in the first blush of married life. The only blemish on their happiness, John's old college flame, Stephanie Lazarus, now an officer in the LAPD.
How did you get in here? He left the door wide open.
Stephanie is stalking.
Sherry was in the condominium by herself and found Lazarus in her police uniform inside their condominium.
Get out now. No.
And there was a confrontation.
I'm waiting for John. Are you kidding me? Get out of my house now.
She was abusing her power and authority and stalking another woman because of jealousy. I cannot imagine a more dangerous situation.
I'm so sorry she's doing this to us.
John is torn between his new wife and his old friend.
Tell her to leave us alone.
I think we should just ignore her. She'll get over it.
And does his best to smooth the waters.
In her mind, Stephanie believes that she's involved in this love triangle. But it's really a fantasy.
Stephanie's fantasy becomes Sherry's nightmare on February 24th, 1986. When the LA cop hands out her own justice.
Stephanie was skilled enough to know that Sherry was home alone, without John.
doing?
Once Stephanie picked the lock, there was no going back. The fight in the condo was a life and death struggle between two women. One of them had a gun and training.
Sherry is tall and strong, but Stephanie is trained for combat.
She bit Sherry on the inner forearm. Sherry is no longer struggling. Lazarus makes the conscious choice to grab the blanket, wrap the gun in order to muzzle the sound.
She did it in the most personal of ways. She inflicted the wounds in her heart and in her face.
Then, Stephanie stops thinking like a killer and starts thinking like a cop.
She knocks over some furniture, she pulls out a drawer, and then she stacks a VCR and a CD player at the foot of the stairs.
So if you're cops and you come over and you look at this, you think, a robbery gone wrong. And that's exactly what the LAPD believes.
Stephanie's colleagues hunt for an armed robber, but they have no leads.
There is no hair evidence, no blood evidence, no fiber evidence to connect her body with any suspect.
Stephanie pulls off the perfect murder.
So the case went cold for about 17 years.
But if Stephanie has hopes of reclaiming her true love, John ends them. Their friendship slowly dissolves, and years later, Stephanie marries someone else.
Some people are able to lock away a dark secret like that. Maybe she even began to believe that that did not happen.
Stephanie has a successful police career. By 2006, she's moved into the exotic world of art fraud. But Stephanie's own fraud is about to be uncovered. She will be bitten by evidence she left 23 years ago.
And the coroner investigator took a swab of that bite. And that bite swab essentially sat in a coroner's freezer for 17 years.
It wasn't until 2005 that the police department had the technology to do DNA detection on such a small sample.
Now, all the victims' acquaintances are secretly swabbed.
And among them is the name, of course, of Stephanie Lazarus.
And they followed Ms. Lazarus around, waiting for her to discard some item that might contain her DNA. And when she left, they swooped in, grabbed the cup,
And they send it back to the lab, and within 2 days, they have a match.
We know you didn't, Stephanie.
You have no proof.
Actually, we do.
Accustomed to asking questions, the tables are turned.
When Stephanie was confronted by the two robbery homicide detectives, you could see the wheels turning.
Stephanie denies any involvement, but she can't explain what her saliva is doing on the murder victim.
I don't think Stephanie could ever really look herself in the mirror and admit to what she's done.
In March 2012, Stephanie Lazarus is convicted of the first-degree murder of Sherry Rasmussen. She is sentenced to 27 years to life.
I wonder if she looked over her shoulder for all those years. My guess is she didn't. She thought she'd gotten away with murder.
Stephanie killed for the man of her dreams, but her dreams were the only place she could ever have him.
Not only had she taken a life, but had broken her oath as a police officer in the worst way possible.
Bless you for helping us.
If a woman has powerful friends,
Come, baby. Mommy loves you.
and a perfect cause,
She thought she was God.
a sinner can become a saint.
She ran a house of horrors.
Memphis, Tennessee, in the 1940s. Babies filled Georgia Tann's life for decades. The 49-year-old goes down in history as the mother of modern adoption.
Prior to the early 20s, adoption was very, very uncommon in the United States. When Georgia started, she saw herself as the savior of these unwanted or neglected or abandoned children.
Georgia gives the babies a second chance by finding them good homes.
Don't get this one ready. Yes, ma'am.
Bringing happiness to childless couples.
She was getting orders for adoption from every state in the country and from Canada and England.
Hello.
Georgia is the angel of Hollywood.
So lovely to meet you. Lovely to meet you too. Come on in.
Some of its brightest stars flock to her orphanage.
A lot of people have heard about Joan Crawford's adoptions. Those were Georgia Tann babies. June Allison and Dick Powell had a Georgia Tann baby.
Movie stars loved her. She was, to most people, a paragon of virtue.
These babies need all the help that they can get. It's the least I can do.
Georgia's good work is lauded by politicians, from governors to presidents.
She was invited to President Truman's inaugural.
I'm so excited to meet our baby.
Eleanor Roosevelt consulted her regarding child welfare.
Oh, look!
She was considered almost a saint.
She had politicians in her pocket. She had doctors in her pocket. She had judges in her pocket.
For 30 years, no one knows Georgia's true story because no one asks where the babies come from. Georgia simply steals them from the most vulnerable.
They would look for unwed mothers, mothers who had possibly lost a husband.
Hello.
And she just literally took the baby.
She preyed on anyone who was down and out, had hard luck.
Georgia Tann didn't just act like she was God. She thought she was God.
George?
She was the only one
George!
that knew what was right for any of these children or any of these families.
George! Here she is.
Georgia recruits women, known as baby pickers, to do most of her dirty work.
Your baby is seriously ill.
Oh, we can't afford a doctor.
And she found her child was sick, and parents said, well, we don't have money for a doctor. She said, don't worry.
Don't worry, we will get a doctor for your baby.
I'll take your child. I'll take care of it.
Bless you for helping us.
And by that means, she obtained that child.
Oh, my baby.
We'll let you know how things go.
Thank you. Bye, baby. Mommy loves you.
The mothers never see their babies again.
And then they would come back 2, 3, 4 days later and say, oh, I'm sorry. Baby Jane died. And we buried her for you.
Some skeptical parents go to the authorities, but soon find out the system is on Georgia's side.
There were judges who ruled against parents who wanted to get their children back. There were policemen who ignored mothers and fathers who rushed to the police station to say that their child had been kidnapped.
Babies robbed from the poor to give to the rich make Georgia a very wealthy woman.
We can never thank you enough.
It's the least that I could do.
This was a money-making business, and these children were properties.
Thank you so much.
Once she had a taste of the money she could make, that became all-consuming. The children were a means to an end.
Childless couples think Georgia's a savior. But there is no maternal blood running through her veins.
Leave them a while longer.
She didn't care about any of those children. Sometimes she didn't think they should have water. She often drugged infants so that they wouldn't cry. She was a monster.
Soon, Georgia's inaction will have the most catastrophic consequences.
Georgia Tann is one of the most despicable excuses for a human being that ever walked on the earth.
In the 1940s, in Memphis, Tennessee, Georgia Tann's adoption work is admired by the rich and powerful.
Somebody do their job and shut those babies off.
But Georgia has two faces and no heart.
They didn't like it when babies cried. They didn't like it when babies soiled themselves. They didn't like it that babies needed to be fed.
The lucky babies are adopted, but no one protects the infants Georgia deems not fit for sale.
He's too scrawny. No one will want him. Take him down to Nancy.
If a child seemed to have no market value, she had no problem with disposing of that child.
Hi, Maureen. So, number one? Come on in.
Rejected babies are farmed out to untrained caregivers.
Some of them were ne'er-do-wells that starved the kids, beat the kids.
Would you like tea? No, I'm all right, thank you.
The conditions were intolerable. Sometimes they were malnourished, sometimes they weren't fed at all.
One of Georgia's caregivers does the unthinkable. She deals with crying babies by leaving them outside.
And she would leave the babies sitting out in the sun, and some of them baked to death in the hot sun.
They succumb very rapidly to dehydration. The sun's rays burn down and cause redness and pain, deep dermal pain. This is a terribly cruel way to die.
You won't be needing that.
I don't think Georgia cared that babies died. There were more out there to get.
Georgia's adoption business is booming. The orphanage is packed to the rafters with sellable babies.
The children were crowded together in cribs, 4 or 5 children in a crib. If one child was sick, soon all the children would be sick.
When a dysentery outbreak hits Memphis in 1945, it spreads from baby to baby.
I'll take care of that.
Georgia, these babies need to be separated from the sick ones.
Her own doctor was saying this gastrointestinal disease that's going on here is causing diarrhea, and this is going to kill the children. She didn't care.
Medicine can save the babies.
Get this filled fast.
I know what's best.
But Georgia refuses to give them any.
They let Mother Nature take its course, and if the child got well, it was good. If not, they died.
In just 2 months, 50 tiny lives are lost.
The Memphis infant mortality rate soared to the highest in the nation.
Georgia Tann is one of the worst child killers I've ever studied because she had education, money, and power.
There's a lot more innocent blood on Georgia's hands.
No one is actually sure of how many children died over the years with Georgia. The estimates tend to run in the area of 500.
Which would make her the most prolific female serial killer in history.
Now remember me as the mother of adoption.
Georgia's reputation remains intact until the day she dies of cancer in 1950, a multi-millionaire.
The most shocking thing about this crime is that she was allowed to get away with it.
The nation mourns the mother of adoption. But with her death, her secrets are finally exposed.
The orphanage was forcibly closed down. But the question remains, how many innocent lives had she taken? And how many people were scarred by coming under the influence and control of Georgia Tann?
She was a cold-hearted psychopath. No empathy, no remorse, no guilt. A user and abuser of other people. She ran a house of horrors.
A woman with brains and beauty.
Well, I think you got it.
She had an ability to be very flirtatious and to attract men.
Can be the most dangerous of all.
She's highly arrogant and thought she wouldn't get caught.
Raleigh, North Carolina, January 2000.
Hang on. Cheers to our baby.
After years trying to have a family, 30-year-olds Eric and Ann Miller are celebrating the baptism of their baby girl.
They both really wanted a family, and specifically, that was the most important thing to her.
A child completes an already good life for the devout Catholics.
Eric and Ann, what a perfect, beautiful, wonderful young couple.
Sweethearts since college, Ann and Eric are both bright scientists.
Sal, can you pass me the axe file from John Smith, please?
They work in different laboratories. Eric has big ambitions, nothing less than a cure for AIDS.
He wanted to work in pediatric AIDS research because that's what moved him. He was a compassionate person. He was a kind man. He always had a smile on his face.
Together, the couple brings in a good living. But it's not enough money for all the treats Ann wants in life.
You can't be serious.
Why not?
Ann insisted they buy a boat. Ann was talking about moving to a larger house in a nicer neighborhood.
We can't afford the car, let alone the boat.
Well, that's because you don't earn enough money.
The money was coming in, and it wasn't enough. She wanted more.
Ann uses bedroom blackmail to get her own way.
I can't have a boat. You can't have me.
Ann would intentionally withholding intimate contact from him unless he went out and purchased her a certain gift that she wanted.
Unhappy with what marriage offers, divorce isn't an option.
She was very devout in her practice, and she didn't want to be seen as a divorced woman.
In November 2000, fate seems to intervene when Eric goes bowling with the boys.
They drink their beer, they eat their sandwich. Eric does comment while he's drinking the beer.
This beer tastes a little skunky, huh?
It does taste really good. You know, it's never very good. It's cold, just drink it. Eric Miller becomes violently ill. He starts having to run to the bathroom. He has bouts of diarrhea, vomiting, nausea.
How you feeling, Eric?
Within a few hours, he's taken to emergency room.
Eric is critically ill, in agony for days, and the doctors don't know why.
We're running some tests.
Eric's illness was a big mystery to doctors. He was a healthy guy. He was not somebody that had ever been sickly before.
Yeah, we're hoping he's gonna be fine.
Puzzled doctors start wondering if the scientist's laboratory is making him sick. They run tests for deadly chemicals and find one: arsenic. But it's not from Eric's lab.
He's got huge amounts of arsenic in his system. Somebody's poisoning him.
Arsenic can cause basically your whole body to deteriorate. Being poisoned with arsenic is being tortured.
But who wants Eric dead?
Look, I hate to say this, but you've been poisoned.
The police need to speak with him before he dies so they can figure out who's done this to him.
For police, the spouse is always a prime suspect.
They ask Eric, is there anybody that could have done this to you? Could your wife have done this? And he says, absolutely not.
Eric dies on December 2nd, 2000.
Eric was sweet, Eric was kind, he was a devoted husband, a devoted father.
A murder investigation is underway. Before it's over, another life will be lost.
The motive in this case, you have to believe in evil.
Raleigh, North Carolina, 2000. 30-year-old scientist Eric Miller is dead before his time, the victim of arsenic poisoning. The police start looking into the young father's life.
We didn't find anything. I mean, no girlfriends, no boyfriends, no gambling, no dope. He was a Midwestern meat and potatoes guy.
They know the arsenic isn't from David's lab.
And lo and behold, didn't have any arsenic in it at all. None.
But there is one lab full of arsenic. His wife's.
Son of a gun.
There was arsenic pretty much available like soap in the lab that she worked in. You know, I'm not the world's smartest detective, but that really makes me suspicious.
To the outside world, Ann is a devoted wife and mother.
Once we peeled that veneer away, what should have been the solid wood underneath wasn't quite so solid anymore.
Police obtain Ann's phone records, and they reveal something strange.
When Eric was in the hospital and Ann was supposed to be sitting by his bedside, she was calling her lover.
Ann's having an affair with her colleague, fellow scientist, 37-year-old Daryl Willard.
There were 500 calls back and forth between the two of them in less than a month.
Those phone records broke this case open. People in love or people that have committed a crime have to talk on the phone. Big mistake.
I just don't think I could do it, Ann.
Then you can't have me.
Daryl soon learns Ann's affection comes with a catch.
Here we are.
Police discover Ann urged Daryl to organize the fateful bowling night.
Nobody ever remembers Daryl Willard in the past having purchased beers for everybody in the party, but he does it this particular night.
This beer tastes like skunky, huh?
Investigators believe the skunky taste is arsenic. But did Daryl have second thoughts?
Sorry. No harm?
The beer was mysteriously spilled. The district attorney believed that Daryl Willard changed his mind and decided he didn't want any part of this.
Police have plenty of questions for Ann, but she lawyers up.
Come on, Daryl.
Homicide investigator Lieutenant Chris Morgan tries his luck with Daryl.
That was about as pitiful a man as I have ever seen. He was just totally beaten.
Known you were coming for a while. I just didn't know when.
And I said, Daryl, I think you've been used. I think a woman has really used you.
Yeah. She's done a really good job of it.
I said, Daryl, yeah, we need to talk. He said, I'm sorry.
I need to call my attorney.
Daryl's advised to say nothing. The police won't get another chance to question him. Later that day, Daryl makes sure of that.
Daryl's suicide looks to me like a panic suicide. The world was caving in around him, but it might have had something to do with tremendous shame and guilt.
Without the star witness, the investigation stalls. Police have a prime suspect, but aren't ready to make an arrest.
And in a homicide case, you always have to remember one chance. You ain't got no do-overs.
Well, say hello, Daddy. How's it going out here?
To escape the glare of the police, Ann moves to a new town and hitches up with a new man.
Her husband's not been dead 6 months even. She just reinvented herself.
But the police aren't giving up. They think a dead man's words could give them a breakthrough. They want to know what Daryl told his attorney.
The police say, well, we want to get that information from the attorney. And of course, the attorney says, I can't give you that information.
Attorney-client privilege is confidential. But prosecutors take their case to the North Carolina Supreme Court and win.
It was the missing piece. It was actual evidence that Ann Miller had admitted to Daryl Willard that she had injected her husband with arsenic while he was in the hospital. So once we got that, we finally arrested Ann Miller in September of 2004.
Mrs. Miller?
Ann Miller was a very smart woman, but not a very good killer.
5 years after Eric's murder, on November 7th, 2005, Ann Miller pleads guilty to second-degree murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder.
She did have to admit in open court that she killed her husband, but she feels no remorse over it.
Many wondered why Ann simply didn't divorce her husband. But that would tarnish her sterling reputation.
She was Catholic, and it wouldn't have looked good. Affair, okay. Murder, okay. Divorce, not so much.
Ann is sentenced to a minimum of 25 years. She is eligible for parole in 2029.
I know evil exists in the world. I've seen it. To this day, Ann Miller feels no guilt over the death of her husband.
These deadly women thought they were entitled to kill. Cop Stephanie Lazarus couldn't have her man, so no one could. Georgia Tann discarded babies like unwanted products. And Ann Miller's poisonous greed claimed 2 lives. All 3 women were bright but brutal. Thankfully, they weren't above the law.